Story 1. When someone treats service workers poorly. I have watched adults scream at teenage cashiers over things completely out of their control, and it is honestly disgusting. This says everything about their character. Story 2. Littering is especially frustrating when there is a trash can nearby. I once watched someone throw their McDonald's bag out of their car window in a parking lot, even though there was a dumpster just 10 feet away. How lazy can you be? Story 3. Anyone who is rude to servers is just disgusting. Why be mean to people who are trying to do their jobs? Story 4. Racism. And I genuinely mean it. Someone I loved deeply said something racist about someone I hated, and it forever changed how I look at them. That person was awful and mean, but that is not an excuse to be racist. Story 5. Biggest loser I have ever known. A guy I used to work with talking about punching a girl at a party once, sounding like he thought it was hilarious and cool. He talked about it more than once. He also hates dogs. Biggest loser ever. Story 6. Lack of empathy. Lack of concern for the greater good. Taking everything as a personal criticism or attack. Story 7. When a man cries or gets angry about being friend-zoned, but does not see anything wrong with pretending to be friends with a woman solely to try to get her to sleep with him. Story 8. People who cannot handle disagreement. I had friends who would immediately get angry, short, and condescending to people who disagreed with them. Hence, I put it this way, I do not eat meat for many reasons. My values are not everybody's values, and I am okay with that. The number of people who get angry about my lifestyle or assume I am judging them for theirs is surprising. It seems people have forgotten that the real world is not an internet forum where you argue anything and everything to the ground and call other people stupid. Story 9. Went on a weird hangout date one time. The person was bragging about money but did not tip. I tipped and did not hang out with him again. Story 10. When someone changes their way of speaking when a third person joins. For example, you are talking to person A and they are behaving normally, but when person B joins the conversation, person A starts acting differently, trying to be cool, and sometimes even making fun of you to make person B laugh. If you know, you know. Story 11. Once someone uses the word aware as a negative descriptor, I disregard everything they say from then on. Story 12. Finding out they are a bigot. If you make an offensive joke or say something disparaging about someone based on race, ethnicity, sexual orientation, or similar characteristics, we are done. Story 13. 1. Saying one thing but acting differently or not acting at all. Disrespecting and being rude to people in service industries. Being rude and disrespectful to people on the margins of society, such as the poor or those struggling with addiction. Speaking negatively about your ex. Flashing money or material possessions as if you have a void in your soul. People who do not like animals. People who throw plastic, cigarette butts, and trash into the ocean or nature. People who never change their opinion and believe they are always right. The more someone insists on respect, the less they receive from me. 10. People who believe one group is superior to another. Story 14. Judging me for my religious choices or lack thereof, or trying to force your religious beliefs on me. I have seen the way you treat servers after church on Sunday at Denny's, Judy. Even without a God to worship, I am more Christian than you are. Story 15. List of negative personality types. 1. Arrogant. 2. Cannot be wrong. 3. Steals. 4. Lies. 5. Cheats. 6. Self-centered. More than me. 7. Interrupters. 8. Supporters of Make America Great Again. Story 16. Finding out someone cheated on their partner and shows little to no remorse reveals a lot about their values. If a person can betray the one closest to them, I do not need them in my life. Story 17. When people think being mean is the same as being funny, it can be acceptable occasionally if the joke is good. However, doing it all the time is just annoying and a huge downer. Story 18. Referring to people as high value or low value, whether about themselves or others, is simply objectification and is inappropriate. Story 19. Using degrading words or terminology because they grew up saying them, and therefore they should be allowed, is harmful. You are hurting people. It does not cost you much to use words that do not cause harm. Story 20. Having children they cannot provide for, having too many children, or expecting older children to raise younger children. My respect absolutely disappears when adults knowingly bring children into poverty. Story 21. Any kind of rudeness to others, such as servers, toll collectors, and service personnel, should be avoided. Costs nothing to be kind. Story 22. Seeing someone treat another human like garbage just because they can get away with it. I see that once and they are completely dismissed. Story 23. Treat me like I am somebody to you 1 minute and then go silent without a single warning. Sorry, but that is immature and shows me you do not know how to communicate or be honest. If you do not want someone to be in your life, that is actually fine, but do not act like they are your best friend just to disappear. This is not about ghosting in dating, by the way. It is more a friendship issue I am referring to. Story 24. People who do not use headphones. I understand if you sometimes need to play a short voice message for work discussions or similar purposes. However, if you habitually spend hours streaming shows or short videos in a public space without owning or using headphones, it reflects poorly on your consideration for others. Story 25. Seeing them litter, especially if they are in the car and throw something out the window, causes instant anger. Story 26. When you do not know something simply because you just do not know, and they respond, "How do you not know that?" Story 27. Those who do not value self-improvement of any kind include those who never question themselves and never care to learn anything new. Story 28. Not putting their cart away at supermarkets. Being mean or disrespectful to their spouse. Being mean or disrespectful to waitstaff. Story 29. When someone is a supporter of Donald Trump, every person I have met was always disrespectful and unwilling to listen to opinions that differed from their own. Story 30. Lying about really insignificant things. I am not talking about when people do it to protect others' feelings or make a convoluted story more succinct when retelling it. That is normal behavior. I am talking about when people just make things up to sound more interesting or more intelligent. Tells me you do this habitually, lack integrity, and are not trustworthy. Story 31. People who litter do not clean up after themselves. They pay others to clean up because people like you exist. Story 32. Disrespecting other people's values. Assuming everyone who disagrees with you is an evil person who cannot possibly have their own positive motivations. Inability to consider other people's perspectives. Story 33. Any kind of prejudice towards anyone, including hobbies, race, sex, gender, age, and so on, is unacceptable. Thinking that being completely rude is acceptable because they are just being honest or just speaking their mind is wrong. Story 34. Porn addicts who watch secretly engage in boundary breaking, lying, financial infidelity, undermining commitment, disrespect, and a lack of empathy for the trauma and grief their betrayal causes. They use Darvo and abuse tactic on victims. They take time away from their family to sneak. They take finances from their family and give it to others in exchange for sexual attention. They find places to secretly watch. They lie about what they are doing and about their interest in sexual activity. They act like faithful partners but masturbate to their digital collection. They fantasize their partner as someone else, using their body as a masturbation aid without knowledge or consent, often in the bathroom while their partner cares for the children, pets, or house. They deny their partner sex because they have drained their sexual energy on their digital collection. They may lose the ability to satisfy their partner's sexual needs, depriving them while secretly fulfilling their own needs, often under the guise of having a low sexual drive, which can lead to relationship issues. They selfishly get pleasure from human trafficking victims, rape victims, revenge porn victims, underage victims, victims of secretly taken videos and pictures, victims of incest, victims of sexual extortion, drugged victims, so-called porn stars who, once sufficiently drugged mid-shoot, are forced to sign contracts allowing their previously agreed boundaries to be violated. All of the major pornography platforms contain these issues. Over half of the top 25 most frequently watched pornography videos depict violence against females. 50% of marriages end in divorce. 90% of the time, if the wife is college educated, she initiates it. 70% if she is not, suggesting that about 20% of women remain trapped in marriages due to financial constraints. Divorce lawyers cite pornography as a significant contributing factor in 60% of divorces. By the nature of addiction, pornography addiction escalates over time, sometimes leading to sex offenses, public masturbation, sex with prostitutes, and trading of partners' content and illegal material on messaging platforms. Prior to widespread high-speed internet access, 1 to 2% of men reported erectile dysfunction, almost exclusively due to medical issues including age. Now, 15% to over 55% of men report erectile dysfunction. The better the internet infrastructure in a country, the higher the percentage. Porn-induced erectile dysfunction may include death grip syndrome, an inability to orgasm without manual stimulation, lasting excessively long, closing eyes or spacing out to imagine pornography, watching pornography in bed, and finishing in the same amount of time they have trained themselves to in secret. They may also orgasm silently as a trained response. Not all men experience these issues. Individual experiences may vary. Imagine if every night your partner secretly watched Neighbors through their window instead of having sex with you. You are deprived of sexual pleasure or the quality has significantly diminished. You now live like roommates, but you stay because you love them and understand they have a low libido or medical issues, despite you almost always being ready and willing. Would you be jealous? Then increase intimacy and be more available. Story 35. Poor personal hygiene. I'm pretty informal myself and don't judge the way other people dress. But someone who looks or smells unwashed is an immediate no. I'm not talking about people who are unhoused or severely mentally ill. Those are extenuating circumstances. Story 36. People who refuse to try and learn something new or understand a different way of thinking because it is not what they are used to or they do not want to try and understand. Story 37. When someone is a serial blocker, muter, ghoster, and likes to brag and warn about it constantly, it seems that when a conversation does not go their way, they use this as their go-to move. Sometimes, every few weeks, they unfriend everyone on their social media and make cringeworthy passive-aggressive posts about how someone bothered them in some way. Story 38. I would say, people who demand respect just because they are older than you or expect you to do things for them solely because they are older than you will lose the respect I did have for them. Story 39. Anyone using the word woke, unironically in a negative way to describe activism or advocacy for social issues. Story 40. Basic manners. It is not hard to say please and thank you, especially when asking someone for help. Anyone who cannot be bothered to add these two words to their request immediately puts me off. Story 41. Treating service workers poorly shows disrespect. Covert racism, especially the "it was just a joke" type, is the worst. Story 42. People who never admit their mistakes always blame others, play the victim, or distort the story to appear innocent. Story 43. 3 weeks ago, I gave my friend Joe a Chinese burn on his arm. The following week, he came to school with a broken hand. He claimed that I dislocated a bone in his arm, and everyone believed him. One by one, my friends said they didn't want to be friends anymore. 2 weeks later, I got into a fight with one of my old friends. The staff at school separated us and told us to go to the office the next day. After an investigation, the school found out that Joe had lied about me dislocating his arm. I tried to explain my side to my friends, but they didn't believe me. One friend accused me of lying. A staff member and I asked Joe to admit that he had been dishonest. Eventually, he told my friends the truth, but they think the staff member and I forced him to say that, which isn't true. The following week, Joe claimed he was pressured again. Now, my friends all hate me. What should I do? Story 44. Using racist, sexist, or bigoted language is unacceptable. If I hear it, I will never trust you again and will likely avoid you. Story 45. When in a group setting, someone casually says something innocent, like, I really like riding bicycles, There is almost always that one person who has to shoot down someone's interests, like, I would never ride bicycles. That is lame. I only drive places. Story 46. People who openly and publicly humiliate or insult their partner. It is okay to vent in private spaces with trusted people. However, publicly airing your laundry is immature and instantly makes me feel like you are the problem. Story 47. When someone only sees the negative parts of your personality and constantly belittles you, if they cannot see the good in you as well, they lose all credibility and therefore all respect. Story 48. When they do not understand the concept of being polite to everybody the first time you meet, regardless of what you think you already know about them, it is mutual respect and called being a human being. When they make unsolicited, extremely rude comments about people's appearances. Story 49. Cheaters and lovers. If you can betray your life partner, I have no reason to trust you. If you are comfortable being the side partner, you have no respect for yourself or empathy for the wrong partner. You cannot be trusted. Story 50. People who lack curiosity and the drive to find objective truth and facts. You can see it emanating from them like false pride. It disgusts me. Story 51. Bullying when you are a grown adult. There was a man who said to me, like, dude, you are in your 30s or 40s. Be lucky there are witnesses because half of your coworkers would be kicking your ass. I should have warned him because eventually it was going to happen. Story 52. Disrespecting service workers after minor inconveniences is unacceptable. They are just people doing their jobs, often at the mercy of the corporation just like you. Please be considerate. Story 53. Talking negatively about their significant other. If they are horrible, why are you with them? If they are not, why are you complaining? Story 54. Someone who gives you a hard time as a teenager but acts nice to you as an adult. You did not want to help me then. Get lost. Story 55. Being hypocrites. Especially when hypocrites do the exact same thing they berate and chastise you for doing. I went from being disrespectful towards them to instantly despising them in a heartbeat. Story 56. Driving without headlights on. If unsure, turn them on. I don't care if you can see me. It is hard to see you. Story 57. Be stingy when it is unnecessary, such as finding excuses not to pay for things, not contributing towards an office-leaving gift, or not adding to the tip at a group meal. I have no problem with everyone paying for their own meals instead of splitting the bill equally. However, if everyone else is rounding up so the waitress receives a tip and you are holding us up for your change, then driving home in your new BMW, I do not like you. Story 58. Being two-faced. I had a boss once who walked in one day complaining about another team that was using our department's resources and, according to my boss, not paying nearly enough. My boss continued to rant when the very team he was complaining about walked in to check on progress. His face instantly changed from sour to super friendly and welcoming, loudly praising how great everything was and what a great thing it was for our two departments to collaborate. Another, even higher-level boss in the same organization was even more deceitful. When a new chief executive officer came in and initiated a program to ask workers on the ground about their biggest problems and potential changes, this boss clung to the new chief executive officer and constantly interrupted workers trying to speak up, effectively drowning them out and acting as if there were no real issues in the department. That individual was unfortunately skilled at politicking and rose to become the head of the organization representing and accrediting my industry. Story 59. Lack of compassion. Refusing to see a situation from someone else's perspective. Refusing to believe that they can be wrong about something. Story 60. How they treat women and children and speak of them is important. A close second is never admitting that they are wrong. I do not even give those types the time of day. I have had people ask a friend of mine why I moved to a different part of the house as soon as I saw they were coming over, or why he leaves quickly. I never offended him. His reply, yes, you were wrong. Story 61. Downplaying their own unacceptable behavior. I'm glad you admitted you made a mistake and want to improve. That does not mean you should excuse or minimize the damage you caused. For example, driving under the influence and hitting another car is serious. It is fortunate that no one was killed, but you still chose to drive when you should not have. Story 62. Treating anyone who serves them badly, such as restaurant staff, service station employees, or retail workers. Driving irresponsibly, mistreating animals, mockery, bigotry, prejudice. Story 63. People that push their propaganda. Case in point, I was at a festival and someone was talking about microplastics, and yes, they are very harmful. But he then said something like, "You will do more damage to your body drinking water from a plastic bottle than from beer in a glass." Story 64. Cheating. I have ended friendships because they were cheating on their partners. That is one thing that will instantly make me dislike you and never want to be around you again. It is such an unpleasant behavior that is literally never justifiable. Story 65. When you meet someone and introduce yourself or start talking to them, and they immediately don't smile or seem at all interested in talking to you after you have just met them. I do not mean people who are not big smilers or very extroverted in general. I am against the mindset that people are rude if they do not smile, but will still politely shake your hand and say, "Nice to meet you." I mean people who generally seem enthusiastic but will put on a sour face when you introduce yourself in a completely socially acceptable way. Story 66. Never accountable for anything that happens in their life. Everything is always someone else's fault. Story 67. When people start the whole alpha male, female, and feminine masculine dating talk that is all over podcasts and YouTube. Story 68. When they talk about astrology as if it is actually real, they say, "Oh, you are a insert sign here." That makes total sense. Story 69. Wenn sich eine Person in jeder Situation in den Vordergrund drängen muss, zum Beispiel mit Aussagen wie "Ich weiß so etwas", "Ich habe in dem Feld schon gearbeitet", "Ich bin XY Jahre alt", "Ich weiß, wovon ich rede" oder "Eure Generation ist gar nicht mehr belastbar, als ich das damals gemacht habe", und sich entsprechend in der Opferrolle sonnt. Jemand, der auf Gedeih und Verderb nicht bereit ist, andere Perspektiven einzunehmen oder seine Meinung zu ändern. Meist verbinden diese Menschen dies mit persönlicher Schwäche, obwohl das Gegenteil der Fall ist. Story 70. Lack of self-awareness. Second, the inability to verbally express feelings in a deep and consistent manner. Story 71. I know a man who is always bragging about how much money he is making from his stock trades and gambling winnings. He never loses at anything. He does not realize that we just roll our eyes. Story 72. Willful ignorance, closed-mindedness, controlling behavior, never listening to boundaries, constantly imposing their own opinions on matters that do not concern them. Also, hypocrisy and being judgmental for no reason. Story 73. Being overly polite or nice. Nobody likes a jerk, but if I feel like you are obscuring the point just to sound nice, I will like you even less. Story 74. They hurt you, not me mentality. Imagine you have two friends. Friend A betrayed friend B by personally hurting them, encouraging friend B's partner to cheat, and constantly disrespecting them. Yet, you remain friends with friend A because they did not do anything to you. You do not care that friend B had their boundaries crossed and was violated by someone you were friends with. Instead of cutting off an obvious wrongdoer, you stay friends with them because it is not your problem. For example, if you were friends with a married couple and one of them was being abused, would you remain friends with the abuser just because they did not personally harm you? Story 75. I found someone I respected recently posted anti-abortion rhetoric on Facebook. I am frustrated to say I respect them much less now. Story 76. I found someone I respected recently posted anti-abortion rhetoric on Facebook. I am frustrated to say I respect them much less now. Story 77. When they wear an image of a Bronze Age torture device or a lowercase letter T on a chain around their neck. Story 78. When someone talks down to others or acts like they are better than everyone, that kind of attitude kills all respect instantly. Story 79. Lies and hiding something, such as a partner cheating on you, are red flags that can change your life. Story 80. Smoking, acting cool, loud talking, knowing everything, or just not my type. First of all, to gain respect you need a miracle. A few years without mistakes. Then to lose it is not easy because if you are that kind of man, you are not going to start doing something stupid. Story 81. Smoking. Their decorating choices. Sports obsession. tattoos, toenail infection, not reading or owning books, not knowing other languages, food dislikes, including popular diets and veganism. Story 82. People who are indifferent or cruel to animals lose all my respect. I will do my utmost to never see them or, at a minimum, interact with them again. Story 83. Saying on accident instead of by accident is something I hear more and more, and it makes the speaker sound like they have never read any books or like a child. It is a small pet hate, I know, but the aversion it creates is out of my control. Story 84. When someone treats others with disrespect for no reason, especially when they talk badly about people they have never met, just based on gossip or what others say. If you have never had a personal experience with that person, why act like you know their whole story? Story 85. When they talk about literally everyone, I don't mean best friends gossiping. I mean when there is just that one person who, no matter what, has to say something about everyone, normally including you, just not to your face. Story 86. Someone unironically saying things like, "Sorry you feel that way," to other people. I didn't know I was talking to literal human garbage, but at least that way they make me aware of that fact. Also, being rude to waiters, checkout clerks, or other service workers. Instant respect is lost on that one. Get that negative behavior out of my surroundings fast. Story 87. When a person often speaks negatively about others behind their backs, I make a mental note not to trust or be vulnerable around them. Story 88. People who lie to their significant others will lie to anyone about anything, including you. These individuals are usually narcissists. Story 89. Cheating on a partner, or being a mistress or side partner, is unacceptable. Such behavior is harmful, and I want nothing to do with it. No excuses. Story 90. When you speak negatively about someone behind their back, it creates distrust. If you talk badly about someone to me when they are not present, no matter how much I may agree with you, I can never feel confident that you will not speak poorly about me to others. It only adds to people's insecurities when they sense they are being discussed behind their backs. Story 91. When people speak negatively about others, especially when it is someone they are supposedly fond of and close to, but not close to me, if they are talking about them to me, they are definitely capable of talking about me to them as well. No thanks, I do not want that toxicity around me. Story 92. Cheating. I have known 3 different people who cheated, and as soon as they did, I could not even be bothered to listen to them talk, even about day-to-day matters. I am just not interested. Story 93. Having a framed poster of Jordan Peterson's 12 Rules for Life on their wall. Story 94. People who are rude toward customer service representatives show a lack of respect and character. The waitress is not personally responsible if your meal was not cooked to perfection. They just brought it to you. Please be respectful. Story 95. People who take advantage of the system. I just cannot do that. That is not how I was raised. If I do not need it and you do, go ahead. Thanks a bunch for sticking around till the end of the video. Remember to subscribe, and until next time, stay awesome and goodbye.